Join the coven. Being invisible is not what you think it's like. Part 3. A story written by poloniumpoisoning. I walked around slowly, calming my heartbeat. Instinctively, I understood what Hecate meant. If you focused on relaxing, 800,000 heartbeats would be a far greater time than if you were in distress. Time in that realm elapsed differently for each creature, and indifferent to the time on Earth, the concrete world. As I focused, I could see more of the savage world I was in, and less the Earth that temporarily I hoped I didn't belong in. Hecate attacking the woolly mammoth had dispersed most creatures in the area. Shapes taller than the trees still could be seen moving around, but they were too fast and titanic to take notice of me. Okay, you have to find your inner force. You have a hidden strength within you. You can defeat the dodo, who is actually gigantic, somehow. I muttered to myself, unsure of how I would release such power. The only thing I knew is that I had to breathe slowly. Not freaking out was a huge task on its own. I don't know for how long I roamed around clueless. Excuse me, miss? I heard you say something about the dodo? I turned around to see where the shy voice came from. A delicate-looking lady was extending her gloved hand in my direction. She could be any age between 20 and 30, with rosy cheeks and beautiful clothing. The woman was a little more solid than me, but not as solid as the dodo or other strong monsters. Yes, I did. I'm Abby, I replied, deciding I should trust her and shake her hand. It's amazing how before I became invisible, I dreamed of spending weeks without having human interaction. But now I got lonely so easily. It felt awfully depressing to look around and only see walking corpses with blurred faces or human outlines consisting of static. I'm Ada, she said softly. Ada Lovelace. Haven't I heard your name before? I asked. I don't know exactly why, but it sounded familiar. She blushed in delight, and her body became just a little bit more visible, just enough for me to notice. Well, I think so. I was almost erased from history by men. But you girls are finding me again, she smiled. I think it helped that I faced off the dodo. I didn't win, but Hecate found the battle thrilling enough to consider it a draw. That's good. What happened? Well, I was able to keep not disappearing, and got a little bit stronger. You know what happens if you lose, right? I shook my head, and for a moment she seemed to be surprised that I accepted Hecate's deal without asking about this part. You enter the dodo's eyes, the incomprehensible abyss. Not even Hecate knows what happens there. But one would assume it's either infinite pain or an eternal nothingness. As I processed this terrifying information, Ada screamed, "Careful!" and rushed me to hide behind something. Noticing my confusion, she quickly clarified. This place is made of obsolete objects, my new companion whispered. I didn't even understand most of the paraphernalia around me, but they seemed to belong to all times in the past. Look, that one is the earth shark. What the damn? Ada shushed me and made me look right where we stood not a minute ago. There was a surreal creature. It looked pretty much like the white shark, but bigger. around the size of a tunnel boring machine, except its mouth was over 270 degrees around its body. Like a ridiculously big zipper. That was the scariest jaw I have ever seen. Also, the monster was out of water and moving like a centipede. The earth shark devoured everything on its way, not seeming to care whether something could be considered food or not. His sharp teeth easily crushed objects, boulders, and the unfortunate creatures that didn't escape quickly enough. Thank God this thing is completely blind and deaf. Not that nimble either, Ada explained. Which means you're safe as long as you stay out of its way. Oh, okay. I immediately worked on calming my heartbeat and breathing, so I wouldn't lose precious time over the bizarre monster's arrival. I tried not to think about how cold it was. Not only in that moment, but always. The air was also so damp that it felt oppressive all the time. It also felt old and rarefied. When I turned my attention to Ada again, she was holding a handful of tiny yellow flowers. Are you hungry? Just then, I realized my stomach was rumbling loudly. A moment ago, I felt nothing. But when I thought about food, I felt malnourished and weak, like I was a nomad starving in the middle of the desert, something that wasn't that far from the truth. I accepted half the portion of herbs. I have no words to explain how it tasted, except for transcendental. My awe must have been clear on my face. Did you like it? She smiled. It's silphium. The Romans used it so much, it's gone extinct. Actually extinct. So don't worry about eating it. It won't make the silphium disappear even more. But it's good for us. Once again, I noticed that Ada grew a little more corporeal after eating just a small handful. I felt my stomach pleasantly full, like I've rarely been before. Now that we've moved this out of the way, we should work on your battle. First of all, you must embrace your rage and understand it, she said in a practical, didactic tone. Okay, Ada, you're being a big help, but I have to ask you, why would you care? Shouldn't you be trying to get yourself out of this nightmare? Also, what do you mean by understanding my rage? She smiled. Every smile of hers had a different nuance. In time, people will bring me back. I know it. But will people remember you, Abigail? Will they care? I don't think so, I replied after she patiently watched me. I help you because I can help you. I would never leave a fellow human, let alone a fellow woman, face the dodo on her own. If Hakari sees potential in you, he must be right. He's always right, and I have a little experience with the dodo, so... Okay, sorry for doubting your intentions, but about the rage? There's no need to pretend that you don't know. Everyone that's here loathes something or someone. Everyone. What makes your blood boil? I'm mad about my stupid job and the awful customers. They made me a pariah. I didn't used to be this disgusting, but you know what? There's something else I hate more. The reason I had to be there in the first place. I noticed my closed fists were glowing bright red. I wish my siblings were dead. Embrace this feeling, Abby. Embrace. Your rage and hatred is you. You think you've been here a long time? Well, there are beings that were sent here thousands of Earth years ago. Do you want to be like them? Do you want to become a blur and disappear? Or do you, and to feel really mad and leave, I focused on my rage. All those long shifts slaving off so my siblings would complain about my cooking when I got home. All the dreams I gave up to be mistreated every day so I could help support two teenagers that did nothing all day and still couldn't manage to raise their grades above mediocrity. All the guilt trips and projections of my deadbeat father my mom made on me. All the sleepless nights because that little crap couldn't turn off her phone and shut her freaking mouth up for 5 hours. I felt a mix of pain and greatness as from my own blood and bones a ruby red katana was born inside my closed hand. Fist grasped so tightly I thought my fingers would break. It grew from within my palm like Jack's magic beanstalk. Except it was made of blood, heartburn, and sheer power. I heard 2 pairs of hands slow clapping behind me, and a majestic shriek that didn't inspire fear in me this time. I had indeed a lot of potential, and I was ready to use it. Part 4. Nothing that happened to me before or after facing the dodo really matters. That was, I dare to say, the only moment in the history of existence that ever mattered. The dodo opened its majestic wings with at least 10 meters of spread from tip to tip. The inner part of its wings consisted of huge daggers made of pure gold. I had a moment to contemplate them, while Ada whispered one last instruction in my ear, before at least a half a dozen of his golden sharp plumes were sent flying in my direction. I held my katana for dear life. Nothing in any world could make me let go of my weapon. With little difficulty, I used my own blade to deflect all the golden knives. I realized the katana moved on its own, guiding my body graciously, not making a single unnecessary movement. The dodo shrieked louder. This time, an electric discharge of fear coursed through my body from head to toe. But fear could be easily turned into rage, and rage was power. I felt the katana in my hand grow even lighter, but tougher. That's when I realized the most important thing about me. I was unbreakable. Because I was already as broken as one could be. The dodo was huge and extremely powerful, but not invincible. It needed a little time to reload its daggers to shoot at me again, and while it happened, his stance was wide open. How much time? Breathe slowly, slowly, slowly. Enough time. Following Ada's last advice to me before the battle, I bull rushed against the dodo. That's how you take away solidness from other beings to add it to your own body. You walk across them, and it's so much easier said than done. At first, I felt the golden daggers hurting all over my body like 1,000 paper cuts. But stopping never even crossed my mind. I was too thrilled that my attack even seemed to be succeeding. Then it was all softness and warmth. I was inside the dodo. The bird was large enough that crossing it took more than a fraction of a moment. Make your heart beat less so you can stay here longer. My katana and I were a hive mind. We invested against the cozy insides of our opponent, cutting through its smooth flesh. The thing, Abby, Ada had told me, is that the dodo doesn't die. You have to make it unconscious. That's all. So don't try to go for the heart. The dodo's heart was literally made of gold, and I could see it above my head. Not even my blade could cut through that, and trying it would be wasting a precious opportunity. So we went for the pulpy, exposed organs. It would be a shame to kill such a fascinating, unique creature anyway. I just wanted to hurt it enough to win. I finished crossing the dodo, appearing on its other side. I had almost forgotten how heavy and damp the outside air was. As soon as I resurfaced, the dodo screamed, making everything shake, my whole being included. I had the upper hand until then. But that bestial, desperate yell destroyed my concentration. The sound was so piercing and filled with sorrow. My heart beat so fast that 1,000,000 years could have passed. Time was elapsing so much faster for me than the dodo. It meant that my rival could move freely and fast, while I was astonished and trying to recover my balance after my eardrums were destroyed. The dodo put its titanic head next to me. I immediately closed my eyes. But I still could see it. I could see everything. I realized that with my eyes closed, nothing changed. In this world, I was invisible because light didn't pass across me. So it didn't pass across my retina. I was blind and could only see with my mind. The dodo's abysses were inevitable. His head being so huge, I was at first facing the space between its eyes. But it was a matter of time before my rival would move ever so slightly and force me to face one of his worst twin weapons. Think about your rage, Abby. Hate everyone, everything. Hate your face. Hate your goddamn face. Let it consume you. It's pointless. The dodo spoke inside my head. It didn't have a voice. It was more like thunder you could comprehend, like a language. This is for me to decide, I screamed, using my whole weight to tackle the dodo again. This time, in the forehead. Its stance wasn't open, and I know such a powerful being wouldn't fall for the same trick twice. I knew it would simply move enough to show me one of its cursed eyes, and that, as this distance, my blade could do nothing to avoid being showered in infinite madness. But from my disgusting face, from my pimples filled with pus, and from my scars, long thorns were born, ruby red and lengthy thorns brimming with power. They not only sheltered my eyes from meeting whatever wickedness the dodo's eyes contained, they pierced the black abyss that less than 1 moment ago stood in front of me, and something vicious, argent, and incomprehensible slowly started to ooze from it. Now this battle had 3 blind eyes. Enough! Hecate spoke the single word with such authority that I thought I was going to be disintegrated by it. At the same time, he thumped his cane on the ground, sending a whirlwind strong enough to engulf the dodo in less than a heartbeat. Objects and smaller creatures were sent flying into the endless sky, but as soon as the vortex sucked in its target, it dissipated. Static filled the air. You could literally touch it. It was like that piece of the reality was starting to fall apart. Hecate and I stared at each other in heavy silence, as Ada watched us both. I don't know for how long none of us 3 moved. He then opened a huge smile, and his whole demeanor changed. Hecate looked deliberately silly again, completely dropping the serious face of an unforgiving god. that he was just wearing until now. "You did amazing, Abigail," he announced as cheerfully as a pyramid scheme salesman when you finally give in and sign up for his team. "You're absolutely qualified to get out of here. Most fights are just so boring. The opponents try and use some object as a weapon, while the weapon is within themselves the whole time. Not only figuratively, of course. And Ada, I'm impressed with you too. Abigail had the potential, but you were the one to awaken it and bring this amazing battle to life." "So you're not mad?" I asked. "No, I'm not mad at all, child. I was just worried about this realm's integrity, because even I don't fully know what's inside the dodo's eyes. After all, I'm the sole protector of both the plan and the creature, and something unprecedented happened, so I had to intervene. You were fantastic. I'm sending you two out of here." "Well, Mr. Hakati," Ada was carefully watching something that lied between the two of us. It looked like glitched pixels or the screen of an old damaged TV, except this was happening to the air, a few steps from where we were. "I think I'd rather stay and help you fix this code. You understand that this choice is permanent, right, child?" he asked her, sounding truly concerned. "I am unable to grant access to the code to beings that don't belong here. But, of course, you'll get a few privileges for volunteering for this job. I could use an assistant." Ada nodded with a smile. "For what I can see, this glitch is the path between this reality and the concrete world. But it won't close on its own." "You're absolutely right," Hecate replied, then shoved me towards the glitch. "Hurry, child. Go back to your world. You'll still be almost invisible there, but you won't be able to interact with us anymore." "And how should I go back to normal?" "That's for you to find out, huh? Have a nice trip." Hecate was carelessly having fun again. I looked at Ada pleadingly. "You're really not coming?" "I have nothing to come back to, and I'll be more useful here anyway." She gently squeezed my hand, then let go of it, making me start falling in a long path made of rays of light and stardust. I still could hear her distant voice when she added, "But I'll be happy if you tell people about me." The final chapter. Being invisible is not all fun, games, and peeking inside locker rooms. You suffer, and you hate it. You live in two worlds overlaid and crashing down on each other, and you hate every heartbeat of it, because you never fully master being in any of them. It's scary how the time goes by differently for everyone. It's scary that you can't interact with anyone or anyone in the concrete world. It's scary that if you want to go back, you're at the mercy of Hecate, a being whose main concern is his realm, not its inhabitants, and the dodo, a beast that inspires as much awe as fear. But by that time, I still didn't know the scariest part of it all. After falling for nearly forever in tunnels of lights and inscrutable shapes and colors, I was back. I wasn't holding my katana or covered in thorns anymore. My body was more solid than I was before fighting against the dodo, but I was still invisible to others and incapable of holding things. My hands just passed through doors instead of opening them, but my body couldn't cross to the other side. In a word, I was useless. Hecate didn't tell me how to go back to normal. "That's for you to find out," he said. "Hecate knows everything. Ada told me. I trusted them. They never lied to me, and they knew more than I would ever know. So that meant that I had the ability to figure this out all on my own. Figuratively or not, the answer once again was inside me. I estimated that I was about 40% visible, at least to myself, so it meant that I was still 60% blind. I could see the world, the normal world, your world, around me. But things were blurry and full of weird shadows. I needed to recover quickly, but I knew nothing about being invisible. Unless... do the same rules apply to both worlds? Here goes nothing, I told myself as I bull rushed against one passerby. I don't even know if they were man or woman, young or old. I couldn't see enough with my hazy eyes. And as sure as Hecate was not human, it worked. I crossed the person's body and noticed that my vision improved, not significantly enough that I could see clearly. But I knew I wasn't crazy, especially because my victim put both her hands to the chest and collapsed on the floor, grumbling. When people started to gather around them, I considered fleeing at first, but then I remembered I was invisible and nothing could touch me. So I crossed 9 more bodies and my vision got so much better. I could see their faces. Although still blurry, they were in pain, but it didn't feel like they were going to die. It was more like a flash mob of heart attack. I would be lying if I said I didn't mean to kill. But I didn't mean to kill that many people at first. I don't deserve your sympathy. I've done bad things. I entered a locker room after all. The men were talking about such vile, unspeakable things. I had to murder all of them. If you pass across someone once, you steal part of their life force. And they will be ill, but not dead. Twice, you kill them. If you pass across them thrice or more, it makes no difference in your strength. They're dead anyway, but their body will grow more torn and mangled. After that, I was unstoppable. I visited my former job and killed all my coworkers and the customers there. I hunted down every person who mistreated me or spit in my face, passing across 5 or 6 innocent people's bodies on my way. To this day, the police are still baffled at the carnage that took place in the fast food restaurant and have no leads as to what happened. People were literally minced alive, still no weapon matched to the wounds. The building had to be demolished because it was impossible to clean up all the blood and viscera from the walls and windows. And no one wants to buy it now. A lot of people in town think it was the work of the supernatural, a demon. They are not so far from the truth. After killing the last of my perpetrators, my vision was almost back to normal. It was time to go home. I considered killing my brother and sister, but soon I realized that I didn't want my old life back, with or without them. I wanted to start anew. So I merged with my sister's body and locked her consciousness in a dark place of our brain. Simple, like that. I became her and stole her life. She had no means to resist. She has no will, no personality, no individuality. She is pretty much empty inside. As I type this now, it's her fingers I'm using. Darla doesn't exist anymore. Darla's cute face is there, but being controlled by someone who knows better, by someone who can use this body to have a great life. Bye, Abby. Her ugly, broken, and still full of dreams older sister. Both Mom and Sydney noticed the sudden changes in Darla. Instead of being an airhead that spent 20 hours a day giggling with her dumb friends about boys, Darla was smart, focused, and clever. I caught Mom staring at me a lot in the first few days. You remind me of someone. I just can't remember who. Mom seemed to have vague memories of me, but she couldn't even place it. She didn't know she had an older daughter whose existence faded forever. My life was good. I don't regret stealing Darla's body. Judging by how she texted men, my sister would end up as a good-for-nothing teenage mother anyway. I knew how to succeed, using her good looks and my brains and expertise. But weeks later, I started to glitch. It happened while I was walking home from school. I looked at my hand and realized I was alternating between visible and invisible. My form was unstable. Starting to panic, I did my best to take deep breaths, but it was physically impossible. The air was suddenly different, heavier, and damper. I felt a presence, then instinctively looked towards the sky. I saw a huge black caterpillar looming over the tallest buildings. It was just for a second. Then it was gone. But I know I'm not hallucinating. I wish I was. I know for sure because it has happened many times after that. Once I saw a pack of the unmistakable Pyrenean ibex, an extinct species of wild goat with splendid horns. Another time, I saw a flying snake so ridiculously large it was hunting down a prey, and the prey was a whale. I saw the woolly mammoth, its bestial eyes full of hatred. I knew it saw me too. The only way to keep these monsters away and stop glitching is killing. I have to pass across people when my form is unstable, so I can have peace for a few days. At first, I had around 10 days of stability, but the intervals are growing shorter, and the city is suspicious of all the unexplainable deaths. There were people that I enjoyed killing, but now I'm so tired. I don't have the time to pick my victim and make sure they're bad. I always have to be quick. I just want to be a normal, carefree teenage girl. I was never able to enjoy my youth in my previous life. I went through so much, and things are still awful and complicated. I'm always anxious because I'm a murderer, and people have been reporting to see weird shadows. I'm afraid I'm not the only one who can see the monsters from the Forgotten Realm. No matter how much I trust Ada and Hakade, I'm afraid that portal wasn't really closed, and I don't know for how long simply stabilizing myself will keep the monsters from entering the concrete world. This is your warning. Stop wishing you were invisible and run for your life if you see a creature that shouldn't exist.